God says, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him, and he is not the one.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you realize it or not, but there's a lesson here that it's not what you look like on the outside that matters. God help me in here. The Lord does not look at the same things that man looks at.
Yes, sir.
Let me pause here one more time for the young folk and say, be careful how you choose your friends. Choosing them just because they're popular or because they'll make how they make you look. How many choose because of how somebody looks, how somebody talks, how they dress, how they walk, how they smell, the color of their skin, rather than the content of their character? If you do this, you also have a Saul spirit, and you represent everything that God dislikes, and what you really need is deliverance. God don't like ugly. And I'm not talking about ugly looking. I'm talking about ugly acting. I got to take my time because I ain't got much energy. Y'all just pray for me. The Bible says Jesse called Abinadab, but God rejected this fine specimen of a man as well. God also rejected Shammah and the rest of his brothers, who were all strong-looking men with solid muscles, but what they did not have was character of the heart to rule over God's people. God knew that he was going to raise up a king with a God heart. And the Bible proves God was right, because Samuel was fooled by Eliab, thinking he must have been the one, only to find out later that even though he was tall in stature, he was soft and a wimp in his character. He was big in stature, but he was a baby on the inside. God help me a little while. And I know y'all don't like this kind of preaching, but that's okay. What the Lord sent as a lesson for the church is, when we look for leaders, we need to stop. Don't look. Let God promote. I said, don't look, but let God promote. Let God prefer, let God pick, and let God prepare, and he'll make sure that they possess the proper qualities to perform the God-ordained position. God help me in here a little while. I know y'all don't like this kind of stuff because we like to vote on folks. And you might vote on the wrong person just because that person might be popular, but it might not be the person God has in mind. I know I'm preaching it is. But you ought to ask yourself, as God looks at your life, whether you are of youthful age, or whether you are a senior citizen, it does not matter. You ought to ask yourself, when God looks at me, what does God see?
Yes, sir.
Does God see a nice haircut or a nice hairdo and beautiful made-up face and all the pleasing attributes to the eye, but he sees somebody who's got a jacked-up heart? Does he see somebody whose attitude is jacked up? Do you think that you are the dog's bark or the cat's meow? If so, you are disqualified.
Yes, sir. Talk more.
I can't get no help in here. God is examining your heart and your faithfulness. Too often we judge folks by who they can or who they will become based on what we think they will become. I know it's time for me to go. So he asked Jesse, are these all the sons that you have? And I heard him when he said, there's still one who is the youngest, but he's tending the sheep. Samuel said, send for him, because we're not going to sit down till he gets here. For some reason, this one that was left was so insignificant to his own father that his own father never refers to him by his name. He only calls him the youngest.
Yes, sir.
God help me in here. Have you ever been around folk who don't even acknowledge your presence? They won't call you by your name. They'll just say him or her.
Talk, God.
I come to tell you that God has not overlooked you. No one in the family even thought of him, because David missed the sacrifice. Nobody invited him for dinner with the rest of the family. But I understand because God specializes in taking a nobody
Yes, sir.
and making them a somebody right in front of everybody.
Yes, sir. Say it, Doc.
I wish I had a witness in here today. Young people, be careful about running in cliques and gangs that you tend to hang around with. But you want to make sure that your friends line up with what God says and with what your parents are teaching you. So the Bible says that they sent for him. In other words, when the Bible says they sent for him, it was like God began to pursue the one he had chosen.
Yes, sir.
It does not matter what folks think about you. When God gets ready to promote you, God will pursue you. He'll pursue the one that he has chosen. Little did David know that he was being chased and being sought after by God.
Say it, Doc.
God chooses those whose hearts are prepared for him. God chooses those who are in the right position. And when David is called, he was found doing what he had been instructed to do. God help me a little while. And I came to encourage the church tonight and tell you to be faithful in your assignment.
Yes, sir.
Grow where God has planted you. If you are an usher like Jesus is being greeted and Jesus needs a seat. Allow God to develop your character and your integrity, even if your job is boring and never gets any prestige. I know I got to quit, but if you do well with that, if you do well with what God has assigned, then God will speak well of you. And he will exalt you right in front of those who do not agree with your exaltation.
Yes, sir.
For the Bible says that Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed